welcome to all today. All three of us are here for the first time in a little while. So, gents, how are you doing?
Doing great. Enjoying the weather out here. How about you?
That's not too bad. Outside, it looks like almost a fall day, so I'll take that in the beginning of February. Cheston, how are you?
It's good. It's so good to see you guys again. I mean, is that a new hat, Derek?
Well, yes, it is actually. I got it for Christmas.
Oh my gosh. I really think, they say a lot of things about white guys wearing Rasta hats, but I think you're really bringing it
I can
back.
really pull it off.
Yeah. We'll
Yeah.
have to talk about the dreadlocks though.
No, it makes me look hip and cool.
Hmm.
Things that
Yeah.
I'm very well known for.
Yeah, about that.
So it's been a little bit, so I'm sure you guys have been playing some things, hopefully. So let's start with Cheston. What have you been playing?
Pretty much same as last time we talked. I wrapped up Mario Galaxy, a very creative, inspired game that once you get to the last 15 stars, the developers were like, you know what? I think we're spent. What if they just collected 100 coins for the last 15 stars?
They're not particularly fun.
No, they weren't, but I did finish it. I have 100%, well, kind of, because I guess technically you have to beat the game again to do that. So I'm as close to 100% as you can be without playing the campaign through twice,
Well, what did you think
I
about
guess.
Luigi's Purple Coins? That game, that mission is kind of
Uh,
notorious.
yeah, I was playing it late at night, and I knew I had heard things about it, but never played it myself. So I always assume with a lot of those Mario stages that are drummed up that it's kind of overblown, like it's not that hard. And I think that kind of was true because it probably took me 5, 6 tries.
It's definitely true. I beat it on my
The
second
first
attempt.
the first few attempts I was like, all right, well this sucks. But then once I think two things. One, I realized that there's more than 100 coins on the stage,
Yes.
which dramatically changed how I needed to approach things. I didn't need to try and get literally every coin on a certain section, which is nice. And then the other thing is that I realized in my successful run, I was about halfway through, and I realized that if I, instead of running like an idiot, because on this stage, the platforms you run on all disappear as soon as you step on them. So you can't like backtrack.
Right,
But
you have
then
to
I
plan your
realized,
return route.
well, yeah. Then I realized, what if I just jumped from square to square? And that way I always left a bunch of open squares to jump to. And it turns out that really works.
That is the
It
winning
turns out going
strategy.
slow and methodical is a better strategy than just running like a madman throughout the stage.
Yeah, I use the long jump a lot. I would clear a bunch of
Oh,
from an
yeah.
area and then I would
Well,
long jump.
on the way back, I did have to be pretty creative with my jumps. But luckily, by that point, I was very good with the long jump. And so I just broke right through and finished it. And then after that, every star that followed was pretty simple. I think it did make me beat the game twice, which I didn't appreciate, or beat the final stage twice,
Yes, I did not
which
like that either.
I didn't appreciate that. I felt like if you were gonna make me, because you have to beat the final boss to unlock the special coin comets, anyways, I think.
You do.
Okay, so then they made me beat it once and then twice, and with no alterations or anything, and it's not like anything special happens when
No,
you
you just play
finish
as
it the
Luigi.
second. Yes, which the same game, just as Luigi. That game is amazing. Maybe the best 3D Mario for the first 105 stars. For the last 15, it's all right. So I finished that, and I played more Hitman, which I'm almost finished with. I mean, finished with in terms of the story. I just finished the Colorado map last night, which was decidedly less fun than all the other maps, but really looking forward to that and moving on to Hitman 2 in the nearish future.
Cool.
And then one little thing I just dabbled with is a new game called Cyber Shadow.
Haven't heard of it.
This, no, it's not your type. Um, it is a 2D.
Well, there you go.
There you go. Yeah,
Yeah, alright, I'm
lost
out.
you there. It is published by Yacht Club, so published by the Shovel Knight people. Though it is not developed by the Shovel Knight people. It's developed by one guy, which is impressive. But it's also a throwback to that era. I think unlike Shovel Knight, which is a throwback to that era that really glosses up the capabilities of the NES. to make a more palatable experience for modern times. I think even you liked that game, Setzer, isn't that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's partly because they took what people liked about those experiences and polished it up so that it's more friendly, more fun for modern audiences.
Hmm.
Uh, Cyber Shadow doesn't. They're pretty deliberate about being faithful to the classic hardware for better and worse. I think, and sometimes I really respect it, but then other times, I think the biggest foible is that you playing this right now. It's on Game Pass. I think you can get it on Switch. I'm assuming you can get it on PS5 as well. But you're playing with a modern controller, all these buttons. But just like an old classic NES game, for some reason it chooses to map literally every attack and special ability to your main attack button plus a direction.
Oof.
Even though you have, this perfectly usable Y button right there if you're playing on Xbox controller, or the B button perhaps, or the bumpers, or the triggers, but nope, nope, you can not use them. You have to use the directional buttons plus your attack button, which is fine sometimes, but some of the challenges are very unforgiving and they require very exact timing on some of your power-ups, and it is not pleasant with that controller. And I mean, I don't know. I like games that are faithful to the limitations of old hardware, but within reason. I don't think there's any reason not to use those buttons.
There is
I
no
think
reason not to use
I
those
think that's
buttons.
at that point that's just being too faithful. I don't think anybody liked that part of NES games. I don't think anybody looks back and says, "Yeah, I miss when you had to press like up and the directional button because there's only two buttons on the controller." I don't think I've ever heard somebody say that
Well, at
since.
least they weren't like faithful to like the Atari controller, where there's only one button. Like, so you got that at least.
Yeah, but that's the purest way to play. Didn't you hear that Larry the Cable Guy joke?
Oh yeah, yeah. With Madden, like I just want to press the button and throw it, get her done.
It's so hard to figure out which button to press when it's hovering over the guy.
I had a friend whose dad, when that special was on the TV in their living room, and he said, "Damn right." I was, uh, I nearly died laughing.
And now you know who the audience is for all those Atari throwback consoles.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So that game, and God, that game is just frustrating as heck. Like the freaking checkpoints are, in some cases, just unbelievable. I had to stop playing the other night because I was just trying to wind down before bed, and so I thought I'd play a stage, which I didn't think was an unreasonable proposition. And then halfway through the stage, there was this like just grueling stretch that concludes with this encounter that when you first approach it, you have no idea how to do it, and the enemy just takes you out in like two hits before you even know what's happened. And then the checkpoint sends you back like, I don't know, all the way to the beginning of the stretch, which is a stretch that is hard to make it through without losing even a little bit of health. So I guess what I'm saying is that I'm a big baby and I need to play stupid games for babies like me, and that this game might actually be too hard for me once you get past the first few stages.
Wow,
It reminds me of The Messenger, but less ambitious and less
get
fun.
good, as they say.
Yeah, yeah. I might go back to it. I don't know. I like things about it. I think the music is super good, which isn't really surprising for one of those games. But
Yes, but what you're telling me about the controller turns me off right away. Like
well, it turned me off too.
I respect retro throwbacks, but you don't have to go for the controller. Like there were other consoles there that had more controllers. I'm pretty sure the Master System had more than two.
I
So
mean, again, those Mega Man collections are a good example because you're playing Mega Man 2 on a PS4, for example. And of course, that game was made with an NES in mind, and every time you wanted to switch power ups, you had to press the start button or whatever and switch. But they were like, hey, listen, we have these triggers now. What if we just automated that part out and you can just press the triggers to switch between your power ups? And you know how many people complained about that? Zero.
well, and also like Mario Galaxy, like it takes advantage of having more buttons. Like you can waggle, quote unquote, with the Y button instead of actually shaking your controller.
you know, Actually, funny you mentioned that. I was thinking the other day, that would have been totally possible to do on the Wii, though, right? Like, there was an available button they could have used.
But they were too, they were too cocksure. They're like, this is the way of the future, bros. You gotta
Yeah.
shake and tumble.
Yeah. Actually, you'll be happy to know that by the end of that game, I actually did switch to using that button instead of
Good. That's what
waggle.
I did the whole time.
Yeah, well, at first I was like, I don't mind the waggle, and I did like it, but then at one point I was kind of tired, and I was like, I'm just gonna press the button to do it, and it felt so good. I was like, oh man, this game is still great, even if I don't waggle the controller. How about that?
Yeah,
And
how
so I
about
stopped.
that? It's almost like those are
I mean, I
gimmicks.
still used it as a cursor, but
Right.
that's fine. I thought the cursor thing was great, so the waggle turns out not as important.
No.
Yeah, so I played Cyber Shadow, bummed me out. The other two games, excellent games. I enjoy quite a bit. Love them both. Might be both are high, high, high on my list of recent favorites that I've gone back through.
Okay.
So hope that trend continues. I started Odyssey again yesterday, so I'm hoping that game
Unfortunately, you need to
holds up.
clarify for the people at home.
Oh, sorry. I was talking about Assassin's Creed Odyssey, of course.
Yes.
No, Jackals. I'm a Nintendo baby. I'm playing Mario Odyssey. I can't. Assassin's Creed would be too hard for my delicate childlike feelings.
Too gory, too graphic.
You might be challenged at some
I'm
point.
intimidated by that game because I always think about the Penny Arcade comic because in that game they have like levels now, like your character levels up,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
so there are certain enemies you just can't beat because of your level. And I remember the Penny Arcade comic vividly from when that game came out. That beating a person in Assassin's Creed who is higher leveled than you, even by one level, is like beating your dad in a wrestling match. And I was like, oh God, oh, I just don't think I'm ready for that kind of experience.
Yeah, you don't have that kind of relationship with your dad.
Well, we did used to wrestle,
We did.
but he was always going easy, I think, to
Yeah,
knock
I would
me out.
hope so. Otherwise, he's a weak man.
Oh no!
You got my ankle, little kid. I'm in terrible pain. Terrible.
Hey, I was a strong child.
Yeah, sure enough. It sounds like you had a full week. So how about you, Setzer? What have you been up to?
Well, I've been playing Fallout New Vegas for the first
Whoa.
time. This game is quickly rocketing into my top 10. I think the only other Bethesda game that I've really spent a lot of time in is Skyrim. I did dabble in Morrowind back in the day, but I never really loved it. You know what I mean? I've never played a Fallout game before either. I really don't like post-apocalyptic stuff. I think it's just kind of cheesy and cynical, and my perspective on Fallout. I was in high school when Fallout 3 was the talk of the town, and Fallout 1 and 2 were a little before my time.
Mhm.
So my perspective on that IP is very based on, what I was most about the Bethesda games, which was that they're a little more wink wink, nudge nudge, remember the 50s,
Yes.
kind of theme park, playground, toy box kind of thing, as opposed to an actual world with themes and things to say.
Well, New Vegas has things to say.
It does. It does. It's done by Obsidian, right?
Yes.
And they wrote, my second favorite game of all time, KOTOR 2. I played the Pillars of Eternity games a couple years ago, and those are great. Um, the strength of the writing in this game actually convinced me to buy another Obsidian game, Tyranny, which is going to be the next thing I play. But I went into this game skeptical but cautiously optimistic, skeptical of the whole Bethesda meme, I guess you could say, to
Right.
sum it up.
But you also got to be skeptical because this game is kind of legendary at this point. It's like one of
Yes.
those you have to play this. It's an all-time great. So I'm always entering those
Yes.
is it really? And then sure
Yeah,
enough.
exactly. Exactly. 'Cause I know people who generally have very different tastes from my own love this game
Like
and
me.
Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 and Fallout 76.
Lost me there.
Right, right. I remember in high school sitting in the bleachers waiting my turn at gym class, and one of my classmates saying that Fallout 3 was the best game of all time because you can blow up the town, the starting town or something.
Yeah, you
And
can.
thinking that's totally orthogonal to what I want out of a video game. But yeah, I've been really enjoying this game, really enjoying it a lot. The atmosphere is brilliant, just brilliant. Now that I kind of live out there, it definitely has given me maybe more of an appreciation for that kind of atmosphere and the setting of this game than I would have had back when it was contemporary. The gameplay is laughably bad.
Very
In
simplistic.
terms of like the shooting,
Yeah.
that kind of gameplay is like pathetic compared to what was available at the time. What was available, maybe even 10, 15 years before this game. No spoilers, but I got pretty far into the game based on, I have a buddy who loves this game, and I was asking him, give me a percentile, right, of how far you think I am through the main story based on these events. And he said, probably 66, 75%, right? I got that far and then decided, okay, I've got to do something about this gameplay. I got to mod this game, right?
Right.
This game is so much better with mods. I cannot imagine playing this on an Xbox 360.
It's funny because I actually really enjoy it vanilla, so
Really?
the gameplay does not bother me in the least.
I find it very easy.
Oh yeah.
It,
Yeah.
It's one of those games where it straddles the line between easy but slow. Like normally when you think of an easy game, you think, oh, you're just blowing through it, right? This game, it's like the enemies can't really hurt me, but I spend so much time plinking away at them with my shotgun. Like you can go into the VATS system, right, and click this guy's head and get a critical on his head with a shotgun, right, a double barrel
Yeah.
shotgun, and it doesn't blow his head off or anything like that. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, and I think that's my other major beef with this game is I think that the some of the RPG elements are kind of contrived when you put them up against some of the action game elements. I think there are ways to integrate those kinds of ideas, but this is kind of like kind of a joke when some like tribal raider barbarian gets shot in the head point blank and doesn't even flinch, right?
Yeah.
So I downloaded some mods that make the game more difficult, rebalance it, that sort of thing. Mod for a sprint button,
Yeah.
a mod to let you throw grenades without having to go into your inventory and pick the grenade and then go back into your inventory and pick your gun again. Stuff like that. So mostly convenience and extra difficulty.
Who was your companion? Are you using Boone?
I've never met Boone.
Really?
Yeah,
You're pretty far in the game for never meeting Boone.
I've never even heard of Boone. Yeah,
He's
I
the
don't know.
sniper guy. He hangs out on top of like a dinosaur inn and like.
Oh,
No,
I met him,
yeah.
but he didn't offer to join me on my travels or anything. He said he
Oh.
had a buddy who might, but I never found his buddy.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I'm slumming it with Eddie and Rex.
Oh, Rex, of course. Good
Yeah,
dog.
yeah. Especially once you do his loyalty quest. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the game. I think it's definitely a product of its time, and it's not awful, right?
Right.
Vanilla. It's not awful.
I
But I think
quite like it
that-
vanilla, so I'm. So I'll
Well,
take
when
it.
did you play it?
The last time I played it was probably 5 years ago. but
Right, when was the first time you played it?
When it came out. So I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. So
probably
I
part
think
of it.
those kinds of things were probably a little more excusable back then, especially on console.
Yeah. I was playing on PS3, so I was used to jank.
Right. Yeah. Nowadays, it's like I kind of expect a sprint button. I kind of expect to be able to just throw grenades without going into the menu. Right.
That's true. When my wife was playing Mass Effect 1, she immediately was like, "Why can't I sprint? Like, what the hell?"
Yeah, yeah.
So the sprint button is important.
I could go into a discussion about sprint, but in a
You prefer
game where
Verizon in
you're
this house.
literally traveling the Mojave Wastes, yeah, it's nice to be able to just go a little faster.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
But yeah, I'm really loving this game. Like I said, it's shooting for a top 10 spot. It's just very good. I haven't touched the DLC yet. I do own it, but I just got to level 16. I want to say, to give you kind of a
Right.
benchmark. So I'm high enough level to do the first DLC, I think, but I just haven't started it. I've been too focused on helping the NCR out. That's one thing that does kind of disappoint me about this game. I expected, because there's this legendary rivalry between NCR and Caesar's Legion,
Yeah.
much like people still debate the Empire and the Stormcloaks in Skyrim, right?
Right.
I see people talk about Legion versus NCR all
Well,
the
the
time.
the only like that's got to be a meme or something because
Yeah,
why
yeah,
would you
because
ever go with the Legion if you unless you were
exactly, the Legion is a joke. The Legion
yeah,
is just terrible.
they're not
Uh,
only ran like idiots, they're like completely racist and stuff. Like they're terrible. So why would you willingly join them? Like it's not like a
they
debate.
have, yeah, they have like no redeeming value. The only time I've only come across four Legion NPCs with speaking roles. One, the first guy you meet, Volpes, who basically just says, "Yeah, we crucify people at random and burn
So
down
what?
this town. Smell you later," and
Yeah.
runs off screen.
That's most of what it
Um,
is. Even when you meet Caesar,
yeah,
when you go to the Legion camp, it's really like you guys suck. uh, like the only places you would see people like saying, "Oh, Legion is the best route," would be like 4chan, where it's full of trolls and stuff. So
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's exactly. That's why I was disappointed. Was I was expecting an actually nuanced, perspective on. Well, the NCR has problems too. They're really repeating the mistakes that led to the culture of the old war, the pre-war, right? The old world culture. Siding with the NCR is just a path toward, a second nuclear annihilation. Caesar's Legion just wants to chill out and be pastoral farmers, but no, they are irredeemable. It's laughable.
yeah, they suck.
Yeah,
They're like the cartoony bad guys almost.
yeah, yeah. Saturday morning villains.
Yeah, I feel like the this game does generally a good job with factions, and Caesar's Legion is the exception. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think New Vegas has got my favorite version of Brotherhood of Steel, where they're kind of very multiple layers to them.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't met the Brotherhood yet. Aren't they in a DLC?
No, no, they are
Oh,
in the main game. So
okay. Yeah. Well, I haven't met them yet.
it's a big game, big
Yeah,
big
it is.
wasteland. So
It is. I was really surprised just how much there is out there. Because at first, when you first start out, the Good Springs area, Prim, down to Nipton probably, there's not a whole lot going on. But then when you round the bend on Nipton and you start getting into Boulder City, it's like you can't you can't swing a shovel without hitting a point of interest, right?
no, yeah, it's all over the place. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm glad it's kind of living up to its reputation a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, it's gunning for top 10. It definitely lives up to its reputation in a lot of ways. And I think that, I'd be more forgiving of vanilla had I played it back in
Probably.
the day.
Yeah,
But,
it's hard for me to
as it
see it.
stands,
Can I ask what was so, as someone who never, ever, ever touched this game, what was so bad about it?
you
That
may not ask.
okay, all right, good to know.
No, no. What
All
were
right,
you
moving on.
saying? What was so bad about it?
Yeah, it was like I know at launch it had all kinds of issues and people were just like it was basically sounded like it was on fire,
It was just really buggy.
Yeah, and it still is.
like cyberpunk level of buggy.
Yeah, I mean, it would crash
Yes
your
and no.
system and stuff.
Yeah,
But
okay,
Yeah, I mean, every Bethesda game is like this.
it's true.
Fallout 76 was notorious, but I mean, Skyrim at launch, man.
But
Um,
my definition of broken and unplayable is way like more lenient than most people's.
Yes, you did finish Sonic
yeah.
2006. We know
Well, twice actually.
twice, willingly for
Well,
fun.
yes. I do not. I do. I even at launch I did not think it was like unplayable. So it's more of a inconvenience sort of glitches and whatnot. I thought.
Yeah.
To be fair, what registers as unplayable today is I saw someone saying that the the 3D world port the extra content in portable mode only. I think, or actually no, I think it's in both modes. It is 30, but only for that mode. It's 60 in the rest of the game, just for that new open world mode. It's 30, and it was just people going nuts like, now it's the freaking broken mess.
Well, I told you that if you play 60 to 30 back to back, it
Well, I
is
know
kind
what
of
you need to
playable.
do. What you need to do is obviously when I saw that, the way I took that news is, well, I need to play the new content first.
Yes.
Because if I play it the other way around, I'll be like,
It's like you can't stand it.
what I used to have.
Yeah, because I've tried. When I go back to 30, it's like I can't do it. It's just too noticeable. So
I mean, I truly don't notice these things.
you will if you play it back to back. It is impossible not to notice unless you're blind.
Um, I mean, I do have bad vision,
Okay, fair
and
enough.
so do you,
I do, but I can
and
tell.
and so does Setzer.
Yep.
We're
So do
all
all of
blind.
Who's
us.
charged?
Yeah, a bunch of blind boys.
It's the three blind mice, eh?
Eh?
That's what we should have named this podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. All right. Well, then I will get to what I've been playing. I've played two things since we last recorded. One of them is something I'll get into with Cheston at a later date. It's called Banjo Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. I don't know, Cheston, you want to talk about our plan for that?
Yeah, I think we're gonna do a book club for games that aren't so great. Is the long and short of, or rather, games that were perceived as not so great. Um, give those games a second chance.
Yes.
And because my development was arrested in 2002, we're going back to the Banjo games and seeing if that 361 is really as bad as we thought it was.
Well, I've beaten it, and I'm waiting for you to get further in. I'll give you a brief spoiler on what I think. I don't think it's bad, but we'll get more into that later. Just wanted to give you a
Well,
little
yeah.
teaseroo.
So far, I wouldn't say that it's bad. However, I would say there are things about it that are important things that are very bad.
Oh, I agree.
There are some key things that are just terrible.
But as I said, this is a conversation for when you get further.
Yes, look forward to it. Please look forward to it.
Yes, please look forward to it. The other thing I played was Sekiro. I finally got to it after months of teasing that it's on the way and being pushed off for other games. I finally got it and beat it. First of all, Jedi Fallen Order is way more like Sekiro than it is like Dark Souls. It is basically the exact same game from a leveling up perspective. Like when you die, you don't lose all of your experience. You only lose like to the most recently gained level. You have ability points. It's like the same sort of thing. The
Am I
point
allowed
where
to make fun of you for quibbling over this? Like I quibbled over it being more Tomb Raider than Uncharted?
well, if you played Sekiro, you would agree with me. So
Well,
no,
if you played Tomb Raider, you'd agree with me.
I have played Tomb Raider.
Well, clearly not with enough focus.
But I mean, it's just so similar that if they hadn't released so close to each other, it'd be like one of these ripped off the other. But they came out pretty close, so I'm going to say it's coincidence. But I think Sekiro is a great game. It is probably, in my opinion, the hardest From game that I've played. Some of the bosses are straight up unforgiving. There's one that like I spent 2.5 hours on, and I barely made a dent on it, and I had to go like grind a little bit before I could go back to it. And it was like you make one mistake and you're dead. Like at least in like Dark Souls and Demon Souls, where if you make one mistake, you're usually not out of the fight. You can like roll away, recover, and get back in. But there are a couple bosses in Sekiro where if you mess up once, it's over. And I gotta say, like I respect From because while it has the trappings of a Souls game, it feels entirely different. It is like straight up an action game. If Dark Souls was a walk and Bloodborne was a jog, this is like a full out sprint. It's crazy. it plays nothing like it almost plays nothing like Dark Souls, but it uses the same makeup. It's crazy.
Same heritage.
Yes.
Yeah.
So and it's also different in this respect. Like there's no character creation. You're using like one guy, Sekiro, and it tells like a story via cutscenes. It's less going through menus and whatnot. I still didn't really care because that's not what I'm here for the From games for. But it did have more of a story if you're into that sort of thing. I personally feel like this is a lesser game than the other From games I played recently, which is interesting because it's the only one that, as far as I know, that got recognized like Game of the Year sorts of stuff.
You're about the game of the world.
Yeah, Game of the World. you know, I feel like this was maybe like a makeup
I
or
mean,
like
people were raising eyebrows about that pick. I
they
think
were.
pretty intently.
Well, they were, but I think that was a crowded year. If I'm remembering right, I don't remember.
No, that year blew. That was Death Stranding.
Oh, the Death Stranding should have won. That game was great.
Well,
But uh, I feel like it was given such honors to like make up for past From stuff because I think Bloodborne is a way better game from a level design perspective and like just how it feels. But this is still really good. If you like From stuff, I'd recommend it. As you know, Setzer was saying he hadn't played it because he's not as much of an action game gamer, and I can safely say I don't think you'd like it as a result because you have to be into countering a lot. If you are not into like memorizing enemy patterns and pressing the guard button to counter in a specific spot, you're not gonna have fun. I would say it is like a way, way, way more hardcore Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. It's what it's closer to, but um, but I also don't think Cheston would like it either. So
well, duh.
well, yeah, it's a little too hard for your baby taste, you know. But I had a good time. I do not think I will replay it anytime soon. But I hope Elden Ring, whenever we learn anything about it, is more like Dark Souls or Bloodborne. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, like I said, I think that game is a little too fast for me.
It
I
is.
play these games, Dark Souls and Bloodborne, I play them very methodically. I think you've seen me play Dark Souls 1 at one point,
Yeah,
and I'm willing to just patiently wait like a cat and,
you gotta
you
find
know,
your time to strike.
hmm whereas in an action game like that, I don't really care to precisely time parries and stuff like that. So
There is some like you can stealth around and play it at a more slow pace, but when you get like 4 or 5 people on screen, you gotta play an action game. So it's different, but I think it's good.
plus, right now I just don't know if I want to play a do it again game.
No, no, it's I think I will be taking a little break from stuff. I think I want to play Dark Souls 2 and 3 just so I can say I've beat all the modern From games, but
hmm
I will put that off.
I think I'm just too cerebral for it. So
Too smart
playing,
for these.
yeah,
I'm
playing
too
smart
enlightened.
man games like Hitman.
Well, true.
And Mario.
Yeah, you missed the very cerebral way that I finished off one of my missions last night, where I just gave up on any pretense of being sneaky, walked out in the open, threw a butcher's knife at the guy, and made a mad dash to the boat and succeeded. Very cerebral.
Good job.
I got my highest rating ever.
Yeah. Hey, job's done, isn't it?
That's right.
I know your favorite tactic is throwing a wrench, so you're
I only threw one wrench yesterday,
wow.
and it was out of frustration when I knew I was about to fail.
Very well
Actually,
done.
it was a screwdriver. Never mind. I didn't throw my wrench, but I had like 3 at one point, so I was loaded.
I have nothing else to say about Sekiro, so I think we can move on to the news.
Well, let's start the week with everyone's favorite topic, litigation.
Yeah.
Phillips of
Oh.
Eurogamer writes that
Hmm.
after receiving over 25,000 complaints about Joy-Con drift, the European Consumer Organization will consider legal action against Nintendo in order to protect Europeans from what it says may be planned obsolescence. Have either of you guys had this with your Nintendo Switch?
I have. I
Yeah.
know Cheston hasn't, right?
I haven't, so I like to annoy Derek and other people. I like to say that since I've never experienced it, it obviously doesn't exist. So
Now, I will say that most controllers I have get something like this at some point. So it's not. I don't really think of it as a Nintendo exclusive issue. Like I've had so many problems with DualShock 4s,
yeah,
it is crazy.
I think
So
it's a proportion thing.
so maybe I've just gotten really unlucky with DualShock 4s. I don't know, but I had Joy-Shock, Dualcon, whatever Joy-Con Drift on one of
Yeah.
these things, and I've got a new one after that, and it's been fine.
See, but how soon did your Joy-Con fail?
Like 2 years. It was a
Yeah.
while. And
Yeah.
same with my wife; she had it too. Hers was a little less time. I think about a year. I would say that even though it is not something I really think is a big deal, I will say enough people have complained about it where it's something. So something needs should be
Well,
done about it.
it
So
hasn't happened to me, so I
yeah,
don't know.
it works for me,
Maybe
bro.
maybe you people should start taking care of your stuff.
Yeah, I suppose so.
I even have I have a Switch Lite and a Switch, and I have played those plenty, and I've yet to experience it. So
I would
I
hope
don't
you don't
know.
experience it on Switch Lite. You'd be screwed.
Oh well, but I mean it's the same joysticks, so you'll see a lot of people who are averse to the console altogether because that's all you have. You can't just replace them. But alas, I haven't had it. Well, maybe if you were more like me, it wouldn't be a problem.
I'd say if 20,000 or so people say like it doesn't even last them 2 years, they should at least offer free repairs. Or
Yeah.
I was reading the article and they said Nintendo typically does, but they should like make it more well known. So
Well, I think the consumer organization's point is more that they want to make sure Nintendo does not do this again, not only for consumer protection reasons, but also for ecological reasons,
oh yeah, that's true.
because they designed essentially a disposable controller. That's a lot of plastic going into a landfill, even if you do replace it for
Yeah.
free.
No,
Good
that's
point.
bad. No, if they are actually making a pro model, they really should be addressing this.
Yeah, I would say that they've gotten enough bad press from this that it won't be a problem in the future. I would
Right.
imagine.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I would hope.
this isn't like their first time with defective hardware. Do you remember the DS? Was it the DS or the DS Lite that had the hinges?
Hmm.
True,
That were just
but future
constantly like flimsy or snapping.
future renditions
And
of the DS do not have that problem though. So I'm
I
saying
don't know.
Joy-Con Drift
I don't
will.
know.
I didn't have that with the 3DS.
Well, I never had it either. But again, I'm perfect, so whatever. We know I don't have these problems.
But I mean, like, I would be surprised if like the next controller from Nintendo had drift issues right away. You know what I mean? Like,
They are slow to learn from mistakes.
that's
So
a bit. Oh, well, I mean, it's not as like I
I
look
don't
at
know.
like Microsoft where they overcompensate after the Red Ring of Death thing. Like I could see Nintendo overcompensating afterwards.
Was it what indestructible joysticks?
Maybe, but I mean, like I feel like the 360s that like the pros or whatever had like crazy big heat sinks or something. Just like
Oh, right. Yes. Okay. No, I get. Yeah. So giant joysticks.
yeah, something like that.
These things are never gonna drift because you're not gonna want to touch them.
But for whenever you inevitably get one for your wife sets or whenever they make the Switch Pro, I wouldn't worry too much about it.
We'll see. We'll see.
And we shall.
Well, next up, Game Maker's Toolkit posted a YouTube video examining how the Nemesis system in Monolith Productions' Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor
Finally.
drives the player to interpret the game events as a personalized narrative. You guys played either of these games to see it in action?
Yeah, I didn't like it.
I played Shadow of Mordor. I have been calling it Shadow of Mordor since. I did not think the Nemesis system was that special, but I watched the video. It's like 20 minutes explaining how it works. I'm like, maybe I should give it another shot. But to me, when I played it, I didn't notice it. But I have not played the sequel.
You didn't notice it?
Well, I
mean,
noticed it. I didn't notice it, but I didn't
talk
think it
about
was.
being blind.
No, I noticed
Well,
it.
No, that was actually my experience. I played the first one, Shadow of Mordor. I have not played the sequel because of all the microtransaction stuff when it launched, right? But when I played Shadow of Mordor, I thought, okay, this is a pretty competent Arkham game. It's not a very complex formula to ape, right?
Right.
But I played it on normal difficulty, as I typically do, and I almost never died. I think I died less than 5 times the entire game, and I almost never let the orcs escape because I was never, in
Savage.
so much
Jeez.
danger that I needed to. So I barely noticed the Nemesis system when I played it. There were just not enough opportunities for the orcs to, iterate.
So it seems like something that was more for higher difficulties, maybe.
I don't
Or
know. I was really bad at that game, and I
me
saw
too,
it all the
actually.
time. I was like
Uh,
really bad. I died a
yeah,
lot,
yeah, I
and
did
I
too.
saw a lot of those freaking orcs, and they'd show up and rub their dumb faces in the camera, go, "Oh, you're back for more, eh?"
Well,
And then
I guess
I
my
die.
problem
Yeah.
is that the like Shadow of Mordor's got like a really bad story, and
Mm-hmm.
the
Yes.
Nemesis system relies on your creativity to create your own stories. Like you're seeing stuff play out, and you're kind of got to piece it together in your head. Like, why is this
Mm-hmm.
happening? And for me, I find that kind of lazy.
Yeah. I think
But
it's
I don't know.
fascinating more than it is fun.
it's interesting for sure.
It's
But
like, oh wow, it's really impressive. It's like No Man's Sky, like infinite planets. Like, oh, that's really
It's definitely
cool.
not lazy.
no, it's not
No.
lazy. That was a bad word
Lazy's,
for it.
yeah, very much so.
Well, geez whiz. I meant like from a storytelling perspective, not from like a engineering perspective. Like,
I don't know. I mean, I think that that's like saying a game like Journey is lazy from a storytelling perspective or something like that. I think you're putting too much emphasis on the expectation of that kind of linear movie style story, which, to be fair, the game did kind of bill itself in that way.
yeah,
But it my perspective may be a little different because as a big Tolkien fan, I went into this knowing that the story was going to be an absolute mess. So I was willing to just write it off from the start.
yeah. Well, I think I need to replay it. I never really gave it a fair
I've debated
chance.
that playing it as well, but I've done that a few times, and every time I'm just so bad at it. And the
Yeah,
Nemesis system doesn't do much for me, but I do think it's cool from a
It is
technical
cool.
standpoint.
Yeah, it's really neat.
It's like,
I
wow,
think it
this
has
is
a lot
really
of
nice.
potential
Yeah.
for a lot of the pipeline problems that you see with games, games as a service, a lot of Ubisoft games, those kinds of games. I think developers are moving in more of a systems-driven direction, and this is probably the most compelling attempt at systems-driven narrative I've seen. That being said, as someone who's playing through Fallout New Vegas, I'm having a lot more fun making my own story as I go by playing that game than I did playing Shadow of Mordor. Now, if there were to be some kind of Nemesis system in Fallout New Vegas where, a specific character who I don't want to spoil kind of dogged you the whole way through and grew and changed, yeah, that'd be cool. But I think maybe we need to play the sequel, right? Maybe
Right.
that'd be a good addition to the book club.
Yes,
Is
I think it
Shadow of
would
War?
be because that game has a bad reputation because of the DLC stuff, and as far as I know, the microtransactions have
Well,
been erased.
and being a
Yeah,
bloated
yeah.
mess, from what I remember.
So I would not be opposed to that, and that could be one Setzer can get into because I
I
know he
also
would.
wouldn't be opposed to that.
All right, sounds good. I would like to see it. I don't know, expanded upon, or other companies take a look at it, which is
Yeah.
something that
Not
Setzer
gonna
will get
happen.
into.
Because just a few days later, IGN's John Ryan would report that Warner Brothers successfully patented the Nemesis system after 5 years of revisions to its patent application.
This is bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember when Crash Bandicoot for the PS2 came out, the review copies of it said like during loading screens there was a mini game that plays, and when the game hit the public, that mini game was removed because a
Mm-hmm.
company held patents for loading
Atari.
screen mini games. Yes.
I thought it was Namco.
Pretty sure it's Atari.
Well,
Oh, I think it's
someone
Namco.
did. Namco and
Someone out
Atari
there.
both simultaneously held it, but this prevented, and this is like, well, that hurts everyone because at that time in gaming, loading screens were a big problem, and anything to take your mind off of it would have been nice, but no one could touch it because of that. So you have this inventive system that would be really interesting to see different takes on it from different companies, because the video that you sent us, it mentioned how when an orc joins your team, their story kind of just ends. They kind of just go off the map, and so it would be interesting to see like a more robust system that kind of takes your friendships into account.
Yeah.
But if if you're risking being sued, why would you even look into that?
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
it's frustrating. It kind of holds the whole industry back of what could be a really interesting gameplay thing.
I think like Spider-Man, like that has all those random crimes, right? And I'm sure Miles Morales does too.
Yeah, but they are nowhere like it feels like a random
Right, but
encounter
I'm
in an
saying like
RPG.
imagine if those had a similar system. And so it's like, oh, you keep I'll get you next time, keep thwarting the same bad guy, right? Which is how comic books are. So it'd be really fitting and effective, I think.
Yeah,
But
if combined with like a proper narrative, it would make like your mundane open world tasks really interesting because you can
imagine
piece
if in
together a
Mario you
story.
stomped a Goomba and then he came back with like an eye patch.
That'd be
And he's
awesome.
like, all right, I'm going to get you this time. And then you get him again and then he comes back with arms. And he's like, all right, well, come here,
Well, it's
Mario.
like when people fought, Metal Gear Solid 5, you head shoot a bunch of people and eventually they start wearing helmets. You know what I mean? Like stuff
Yeah,
like that.
it's
The
Metal Gear
game's
Solid.
learning around you.
It's a great game.
So, this makes things worse. And
Yeah, I was trying to think of other fun things that have maybe been patented. That I wonder, some things we probably don't know about. Like we didn't know about this, and this has been ongoing for 5 years, and people have been wondering for 5 years when they would see another take on the system, and now we know why.
when Shadow Mordor came out, people were like, this is the future. Everyone's going to have a
Right?
Nemesis system.
Turned out it wasn't. But then one came up today was the arrow in Crazy Taxi
Oh, yeah.
was patented by Sega, the one that tells you where to drive.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. That's a good system.
Right. And I don't know that patent still exists. I mean, at this point, I'm sure Sega's not really trying to sell Crazy Taxi, but that could have been helpful in GTA. It could have been useful.
I would say it would be nice to have the option there, even if like you can turn it on or off. Like, because I assume that would get in the way of your immersion. A giant
Well,
arrow.
yes, I mean, I agree, and that system would look very out of place today. But it was one of those things like, oh yeah, that's why like you didn't see that system in driving games, even though like when you played Crazy Taxi, you couldn't imagine life without that. Imagine if GTA had patented because I think they were the first to do the GPS style minimap.
Yes.
So imagine if they had patented that. I mean, how many open world games are so dependent on that?
Well, taken to the extremes, you could patent genres and stuff.
Right. I mean,
like,
shoot, I was playing Xenoblade Chronicles the other day, and that has a GPS thing on its minimap.
yeah.
So imagine if that game couldn't have that. It's crazy.
Oh yeah. Well, imagine if like the first roguelike producer, they were like, you know what, we're patenting
We're
procedurally.
patenting. Oh god.
We're patenting
Yeah.
procedurally generated things, like an entire genre just
Well,
gone.
I don't know
So-
that you can patent the idea of procedural generation.
That's basically what they did. If you look at their patent,
Is
yeah,
it? Oh, shit.
kind of is. So
a
Oh, crap.
series of
Wow.
like generative iterations on an NPC.
Oh,
is-
okay.
Yeah, it's very very broad. It's a
Wow.
crazy broad patent.
How about that?
So we're fortunate that this hasn't been more stifling to genres and stuff.
Yeah, another big recent patent thing: buttons on the underside of controllers, like scuff buttons.
Yeah.
Those are patented by a patent
Microsoft?
troll.
Oh,
No, it's
Really?
like Ironworks Inventions or something like
Huh.
that. Some no-name company nobody's ever heard of and has never really, put out any kind of product. The Valve Steam controller had buttons on the bottom of the grip, like scuff buttons, and they got sued and they lost the suit last week.
Didn't I feel like Nintendo also got into similar issues for their nunchuck controller? I remember hearing them paying some amount of money for patent infringement. So,
yeah. I think you're right.
so it is a problem.
Well, how does
Yeah.
Microsoft get away with that? Because the Elite controller has
They probably
customizable scuff buttons.
they probably pay them
Yeah.
off.
They probably pay the patent holder to license the
that big Bethesda money.
Yes.
All right.
So just a bunch of scamming. But for video games, I do not like this.
On a side note, I just wanted to throw in that I played Red Dead with the GPS thing turned off, and I just wanted to throw that in so you could think I'm a giant douche.
I do think you're a giant. I think
Because I knew that'd be your reaction.
they put that option in there for giant douchebags.
Yeah. Well, I turned the guiding off. I still use the minimap.
Oh, okay.
because I'm not crazy, but I did not. I did
Because
not
you
have
want
the
some
little
got to be like,
trail that
oh,
tells me
so
where to
go
go.
off on that hill over there, over yonder. Like,
Right.
okay,
I'm too stupid for that.
well, this sucks. That's all I can really say about it.
Yeah, but it was a nice. It felt like closure to the last generation because that was one of the hanging threads that at least I was still thinking about. Like, hey, what happened to this?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's good to know. Good to know
Yeah.
that it's business that has ruined everything.
Good to know that it's
Well, I had
dead
a
on the
suspicion.
vine. Well, kind of similar innovation comes out of the Bethesda modding community. Modder Dan Ruda released the XVA Synth utility, which allows the user to synthesize new voice lines from the voice samples already found in Bethesda games. Did you guys get a chance to watch this video?
I did.
Isn't that crazy?
It is insane. Well, what I did
Yeah.
was I don't have a lot of experience with Bethesda games, so I called my wife over and had her listen to the samplings and see how they were close. And I would say about 50% were around what they're supposed to sound like, and she said a couple sounded pretty darn close. So, there's some work to be done, but it's really amazing that something like this exists.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm thinking about what it could do for, like, mods in the future.
Well, imagine if you combined that with the Nemesis system, and that orc could just say whatever.
Yeah,
and
infinite
then have like
possibilities.
predefined lines. Yeah, crazy stuff.
From a real world perspective, I think this technologies could keep improving, and eventually, I think it will cost voice actors work because you could just like have like your NPCs voiced by random AI.
Well, at this rate, all of the voice actors are going to be canceled by 2023, so it might be useful to start working on some automated backup systems.
Perhaps so. Well, you don't want to pay people; you want to pay for systems.
Just wait till Nolan North turns out to be a giant jerk or something. It's going to be over.
That would ruin the video game industry. They couldn't afford it.
It would crash. It would crash. It would be a
Yeah.
second crash.
They couldn't allow him or Laura Bailey to be. It would just be
Oh
over. Or
God!
Tara
Oh,
Strong.
can you imagine? Oh, Tara Strong. That would also be.
Like, oh no,
You know.
Harley Quinn, all this money down the drain.
And a few weak points on this whole industry of ours.
But I
Turns out.
think for leading characters, you'll always need like a human touch. But for
I don't know.
well, I don't. I
think
guess if the technology improves enough,
Yeah.
but for like minor characters, like your random quest givers, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility.
Was Male Shepherd voiced by one of these things?
No, it sounded like it at times, but it wasn't. That's the
He
real
always
human.
seemed a little stiff to me.
I always felt like that.
Well,
That's how I
he's a
felt about.
military man.
That's true.
He's supposed to be
I
stiff.
felt like Femship was obviously the better voice job.
She was a better voice actress. It's like in Cyberpunk, I feel female V is a better voice actress than regular V. So
And I hate to do this, but I actually just remembered. You know the conversation wheel from Mass Effect was patented as well.
that doesn't surprise me. I was like that explains why it is like the Bethesda staple. It's nowhere. But I mean,
Well,
it's in Greedfall.
It is in Fallout 4, but I think there must be like some like tweak or something. Like there must be some aspect of the
or
conversation
they're
wheel.
licensing it.
Yeah, or they're licensing it. I liked the conversation wheel in Mass Effect, not in Fallout 4,
I
but in
don't.
Mass Effect I liked it. I
don't.
I know. You want to see everything you're saying, but I get it.
Well, I think it's reductive, and it trains you to just boil conversations down to flicking the stick in the same direction and then pressing A
Well,
as
that I
quickly
did
as
not like.
possible.
That part I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
like. I agree with you on that, but I did think, from a presentation standpoint, I preferred that much more, especially for a game like Mass Effect, which is big, stupid space opera. I preferred that over the big paragraph of text for each thing. Now, Fallout, I'm not sure I'm with. That seems like a poor fit. But that's an old argument from 2016 that I guess we best not dig up.
Well, in perhaps the most dystopian news on video game innovation, TVNZ's Luke Appleby interviewed Valve's Gabe Newell about the future of video games in brain controller interfaces, or BCIs. Newell says Valve is working on open source BCI software that allows games to interpret the brain signals of players and is partnering with OpenBCI to develop brain readers compatible with Valve's VR headsets. Here are a few choice passages from the article before we discuss, right? Newell. Software developers for interactive experiences, you'll be absolutely using one of these modified VR head straps to be doing that routinely, simply because there's too much useful data. Newell. So the visual experience, the visual fidelity we'll be able to create, the real world will stop being the metric that we apply the best possible visual fidelity. The real world will seem flat, colorless, blurry compared to the experiences you'll be able to create in people's brains. Where it gets weird is when who you are becomes editable through a BCI. One of the early applications I expect we'll see is improved sleep. Sleep will become an app that you run where you say, oh, I need this much sleep, I need this much REM. The interviewer writes, another benefit could be the reduction or total removal of unwanted feelings or conditions from the brain, for therapeutic reasons. Some people who use VR headsets suffer from vertigo due to the mismatch between what they're seeing and what their body is sensing. But Newell says that, right now, BCIs have advanced to a point where that vertigo could be suppressed artificially, and that, quote, it's more of a certification issue than it is a scientific issue. Newell, you could make people think they are hurt by injuring their tool, which is a complicated topic in and of itself. Newell, people are going to decide for themselves if they want to do it. Nobody makes people use a phone. I'm not saying that everybody is going to love and insist that they have a brain-computer interface. I'm just saying each person is going to decide for themselves whether or not there's an interesting combination of feature, functionality, and price. I think that this is beyond the pale, wild dystopia.
It's crazy.
I mean,
That's
I guarantee you, people in our lines of work, as different as they are, will be required to get one of these things as soon as it's viable. The same way we're required to carry a work phone so that we can get emails and calls any time of day. It's going to be the brain-computer interface is next. Oh, well, you have to have one for your job, right?
It's a little scary. We know how like cell phones report data back to big companies. So, what will this brain scan be reporting back to the companies? Like, will our emotions during seeing particular advertisements, what advertisements we like on a level that we can't even comprehend, like that sort of thing. It's terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, is your employer going to be able to edit your feelings so that you don't mind not getting paid or something like that?
Like, yeah, like you're miserable, and then you get like a little rush of endorphins via fake digital sounds. It's like, oh, life is good, actually. I don't mind that I'm making $4 an hour.
Exactly.
We know hackers exist. So what happens if someone hacks into this thing? You can just rewrite someone's personality. Like, it creates a lot of like ethical issues. It's
Yeah, Newell actually comments on that. There's nothing magical about these systems that make them less vulnerable to viruses or things like that than other computer systems. Right now, you have to trust all of your financial data, all of your personal information to your technology infrastructure. And if the people who build those people do a bad job of it, they'll drive consumer acceptance off a cliff. Nobody wants to say, oh, remember Bob? Remember when Bob got hacked by the Russian malware? That sucked. Is he still running naked through the forest or whatever? So yeah, people are going to have a lot of confidence that these are secure systems that don't have long-term health risks.
yeah, I don't know if you can convince the mass public of that. You have people that won't take vaccines because they're thinking like there's mind control chips in there. This is like, you'll put on this thing that can digitally alter your emotions. That's a hard sell.
Oh, trust me, it'll be an easy sell when employers start saying, well, you have to have it for your job. And then all those people will be like, well, I have to have it for my job. You know, I wouldn't want to interfere with the job creators. My God.
Need to make a fortune in crypto or something before that happens so we can just get out of the working industry, not have to deal with that. Because that is terrifying. You know, from a gameplay perspective or whatever Newell's talking about, I think that would be interesting, but not worth the potential risks.
Yeah, I mean, this is a real Pandora's box where we're talking about digitally altering people's brains. You know, and you can frame it as, oh, it's just for video games, it's just to make you feel scared in Resident Evil or whatever, but that's not where it's going to stop.
But then it's like a glitch happens in a game and you like die, or you have permanent like issues. Like, you don't.
Just like .hack.
Yeah, it's just like oh man, hey,
Yeah.
I'm all in now. PKing someone in the game results in them dying in real life. All right.
If you die in the game, you die in real life.
Battle Royales with the
Oh,
YouTube
man.
videos. Oh boy. I'm kind of
Fortnite
on
player
board now.
population is gonna plummet.
Yeah, I know.
Gabe is a weird guy. He should go back to playing with his knife collection or whatever, or playing World of Warcraft on his 128-inch monitor.
I thought the picture of him in the interview was very funny. Just like him barefoot, like this, looking like he's been out in the wilderness for 10 years.
He probably has. Thinking about what game he cannot make next.
Well, I mean, he said that Half-Life Alyx sold well enough that they're back in the single-player market. So
Oh, well, all right.
Yeah, I personally, my take on it, I was watching Noah Caldwell-Gervais. He did a re-examination of the Half-Life franchise all the way up to Alyx, and he raises the point that Alyx, the levels are like more like experiments into what works and what doesn't, so that when Half-Life 3 rolls around, they already know what works in VR and can just do that. And Alyx is kind of the prototype for Half-Life 3. So I definitely, I'm with him on that one.
matter of time.
Yep. It's going to be a VR game, man.
So I won't play it for probably a decade.
I'll never play it.
Yeah,
So
another 10
cool.
years.
They need to be more affordable and better before I jump in.
And
I'm
need
I'm
less
not
space.
interested ever. So
Oh, I'd be fine with that. I could get into a virtual world.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I played VR a couple years ago on my friend's Vive, and I had fun with it. I thought it was fun, but he has a whole room of his apartment devoted to VR. I don't have that kind of space.
Nor do I. Cheston might.
Yeah, I'll just tell the baby to get over it.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry, bud. I've got to play Beat Saber.
You sleeping in the doghouse tonight, boy?
Got to play VR chat with my anime boys.
I will never have a VR device. Let it be known.
I'll write that down
All
for
right.
when you get one in the future.
All right. No interest.
All it takes is Nintendo to make one.
That's
We'll be
true.
all over
They
that
do have
flash
VR.
shit.
No, but
They
like
do have
real
VR.
VR. Don't get
Real
don't be
VR,
cute.
not cardboard.
Yeah.
VR.
Oh, come on.
They're like the next Smash Brothers is VR only.
Everyone loves Google Cardboard.
Well, speaking of Google, Kotaku's Stephen Totilo writes, Google announced the closure of 2 of its game studios that were intended to develop exclusives for their Stadia platform. I think it's interesting to note here, their Montreal studio was founded in October of 2019, and their Los Angeles studio was founded in March 2020. It took less than a year for them to give up on these games, man.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that says a lot about how well Stadia's doing. What it says to me is probably they are retooling and they want to be the Netflix of video games instead of make their own.
Yeah, I think that's probably a better path for them. But I think the problem that they have is still the same problem they've had, which is the tech might work, but it's so clunky to get to use because you have to have a certain Chromecast. And I think if you're going to be Netflix, you have to pretty much be like, you should
Pervasive.
just have a Stadia app on your Fire Stick or your Roku or, whatever. If you're going to force people to buy a specific Chromecast, when Chromecast is already kind of a device, it's just, you really close off your market.
I also think it is extremely difficult because the Netflix of gaming, Microsoft and Sony both have their versions of that, and each of those include the option to download to prevent the problems that come with streaming.
Yeah,
And
Microsoft has seemed to figure this out.
Yes, but PlayStation Now also has download stuff.
Yeah,
so
no, I know.
Unfortunately for Stadia, that's not an option since you can play it on so many things. And I think the input lag is a harder sell for video games than it is for some other stuff. So I don't know if this will take off or if or they have the right technology for it to take off.
All right, from what I've heard, the tech side of it is, for what it's worth, it is fine.
I'm sure about like on a wide range scale. Like you're not going to get people in the middle of the country on Stadia.
I would say that you're not going to get those people on a Series X or PS5 either, because those consoles are becoming, I used to work in the middle of America with no Wi-Fi, and let me tell you, those people were furious with their Xbox Ones and PS4s. So I can only imagine how things are now.
I would say that's apples to oranges. There's a difference between waiting a long time to download an update and then playing the game versus
Oh, yeah.
you can
Oh, I
just
know.
literally never play it.
Oh, no,
You don't
they
have the
could not
bandwidth
get their
to stream.
consoles to their consoles would not work. You still had to have, for some initialization, they needed some amount of network, or for certain games, because some games
Yeah.
ship incomplete. So, I mean, yeah, I think those people that, if I'm being honest, those people are going to be left in the dust anyways. I don't think that's Stadia's problem. I think their problem is that they've created a weird walled garden that very few people know how to access. And so people who might be interested, who are just, your regular Joe who's like, "Oh, that new Tomb Raider game looks really cool. Oh, there's just an app on my TV." Now it's like, "Oh, there's a cool Tomb Raider game. Oh, but I need a special Chromecast and a controller. That's $70. I guess I just might as well just buy one of those Series S boxes and get the same deal." I mean, their business model's smelly.
Well, I think that kind of speaks to the true purpose of Stadia. I'll say it. I'm one of those guys who has a real cynical take on it, which is that Google does not care about video games.
Nope.
Google isn't interested in video games. This is just a way for them to make money off of their cloud infrastructure,
Yeah, of course.
and build out more and more insane amounts of cloud infrastructure so they can turn it to more profitable ends once they've got it. Stadia itself is kind of a flash in the pan. I personally, I don't see the point in the whole technology. I think that, like you said, the people who might be most interested in, oh, I want to try out a video game, they're probably the ones with the least technological
Savvy.
know-how and, well, I don't want to say know-how, the ones with the least technological access,
Right.
and the least cultural exposure to Stadia. So I don't really see it having a future, but what do I know?
Alright. I think it'll come when somebody figures out, like, when we get to the point that a smart TV manufacturer, say, like, I don't know, a Sony, just starts shipping their TVs with a PlayStation controller, and there's an app, a PS Now app, that you could just have on there, and you can play Uncharted. And it's, for someone who is in that market, they're not really going to notice the technical shortcomings of that quite as much as Derek when
I
he's
don't
playing his
know.
fighting
It
games.
depends. You can tell, like, if there's like a
Well,
long.
I know, but I am telling you, like, for by and large, the tech side of Stadia, like, for people who have, even a decent connection, I have heard that the tech side is fine,
Okay.
and that the input lag is not like, a dramatically negative impact.
I think it just depends on the type of game.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're fighting games, but nobody plays fighting games
Well, I
anyways.
tried playing Sonic on a streaming thing, and I was like, this kind of feels
Well, but
wrong.
this isn't. I'm not saying this is where you get in.
Right. I know.
I'm not. I don't. They don't care about you, man. They care about the everyday person who just buys a smart TV at the store, and then they're like, oh, hey, look, I guess I'll just download this, and then, you know, hey, I can pay $20 a month and have all these games and stream
Right.
them, and they're perform well enough.
I don't think this will happen in time for, like, I think Google will have abandoned Stadia by then.
Oh,
so.
well, for sure. I don't think Google's the answer. I think in the time that between when Google made their big pitch and now, I think Microsoft has kind of butted in and shown that they have a much better grasp on this. Between xCloud, between Game Pass, like, they've got the business model that I think more people will respond to. They just need to get it out to more people in time.
I'll just say that I'm glad that, like, Google and Amazon tried to get into video games and it kind of didn't work out. So,
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
parallels here.
There are plenty. I think the interesting thing is you think about Microsoft. They were like that when they broke in.
it worked.
But the big difference for them is that they had Halo. So you almost wonder if, if Stadia, if those studios weren't founded, a year before the platform came out. If they were founded, 4 years before, and they launched with something that was actually like, of a Halo caliber, could they have written a different story for themselves?
Well, see, I think that's kind of the problem. Halo was a blockbuster because it was exciting gameplay.
Right.
You can't really do anything exciting with crappy control lag.
and it is difficult to have a new studio with a new IP that gets that kind of attention.
Yeah,
Like
Bungie
Oh
had
yeah,
a lot of
I know.
experience.
stuff like No Man's Sky, which kind of got a lot of attention from a Joe Danger developer, doesn't happen very often.
No, but I mean, Google has money. You know,
They
they
do.
could have walked up to one of these studios and been like, you know what? You know, the same way that Microsoft did with Halo. You know, you're making that game for Mac. What if you made it for Xbox instead?
They could certainly buy journalists too.
Yeah.
Which I think to some degree may have been the case. At least I can't imagine a functional human being actually having such positive opinions of Stadia. Like, I can't see how you're excited about Google or Amazon getting into video games. I mean, to me, that's like the kiss of death.
Yeah, that does not seem pleasant to me.
Well, finally this week, it's with a heavy heart that I inform you of the death of Gearbox Software's beloved hero shooter Battleborn, whose servers were shut down on January 31st, 2021, after almost 5 years of service?
Yeah, service question mark.
Because the game's single player was heavily tied to its online multiplayer, the server shutdown means no Battleborn content is playable in any form whatsoever now. I'd like to end with the insights of Gearbox owner Randy Pritchford on the day of
God help us
Battleborn's
all.
announcement on July 8th, 2014. Battleborn is FPS, hobby-grade co-op campaign, genre-blended multi-mode, competitive esports, metagrowth choice plus epic Battleborn heroes.
Add dead.
Aged like fine wine.
Battleborn was.
Yeah,
Hey,
Battleborn was.
hey, we shouldn't we be having this service for Gearbox itself, because they were acquired like 2 days ago. They were acquired by former THQ Nordic. Randy Pitchford says Gearbox acquisition will allow it to take a risk on new things. Boy, that would be exciting coming from just about anybody except for Randy Pitchford.
Yeah, no kidding.
They are no longer these freewheeling lads working with. They worked with 2K before, I think, or Take Two, one of those.
Yeah, 2K.
Okay, yeah. So now they have a different boss.
Oh no.
Oh, this is a funny failure. I think we can all agree.
It's just funny because Gearbox, you know, back in the, probably 10 years ago, them being acquired would have been big enough news that it would register. Now it was kind of like a drop in the bucket that most people were like, wait, what? Oh.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you look back on Gearbox, they made what?
What a
Some
terrible
hit or
studio.
miss Half-Life expansion packs back in
Yeah.
the day. That crappy
Colonial
Duke
Marines.
Nukem, crappy Colonial Marines, and then
Borderlands.
Borderlands, which was, if you like Rick and Morty, maybe up your alley. But to me, it's like
Borderlands plot
boring
is the
lands.
most obnoxious.
haha.
Haha!
Borderlands, fun to play, but it hates you for playing it. And it makes you hate yourself for playing it too.
It's like Sunset Overdrive and it could be cool, but I hate everything, like, narratively.
Yeah, everything around the game, the attitude of the game is so off-putting.
And to be fair about the Duke Nukem game, that wasn't really their fault. They kind of just cobbled together a
but
finished
they chose
product.
to finish it.
Yeah, they chose
Nobody
They
made
chose
them
to finish
finish it.
Well, I'm kind of grateful that they did, because it was
Are
like
you?
a missing piece of history. Yes. Because at least you can point out, like, Duke Nukem Forever came out.
I think
it's a
I
thing.
prefer the world where 20 years later we're still like, oh man, you think they were gonna finish Duke Nukem Forever?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it sucks, but I kind of like that it did come out.
Yeah, I kind of
But-
appreciate their willingness to cash in on people's GameStop pre-orders from 12 years earlier.
Well, look, I don't know what you want from me here. They cobbled together this piece of crap and they released it.
I will
don't know.
always appreciate the time that the whole world was embroiled in a big scandal involving Randy Pitchford and online magicians and everything that entailed there. That was a really fun week.
It was.
It was.
And I will miss it. And I think Randy Pitchford is a crazy guy. And best of luck to his new employers working with him.
Battleborn seemed like it was trying to be too many things,
Well,
as the tweet
If
pointed
you
out.
remember, besides being too many things and having a truly terrible style, like just a hideous looking thing, it also came out like the week after or before Overwatch, and it was that
Yeah.
kind of game. So it was like just
got eaten
immediately,
alive.
like, it was just launched and then right into a void. Like, it's gone.
Jettison.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you couldn't even get like people half-heartedly doing like the Dota and Heart of the Storm or whatever that game was
Heroes
called.
of the
Like
Storm.
you couldn't get those like wars because no one cared about Battleborn.
No, I mean, it was bad. It was, I,
Which is
yeah.
funny. After Battleborn came out, you still got Lawbreakers trying to come out,
Mm-hmm.
which
Well,
completely
there's a
failed.
lost art to the failed multiplayer experience, because I feel like we don't have as many of those games that just come out and die on the vine. But we used to have like Lawbreakers, Brink. Remember Brink?
Mm-hmm.
Uh
Steep.
huh.
Yeah.
And Evolve.
Evolve. Yeah, I was thinking about Evolve the
Ooh,
other day. That was one of the
stinky.
first. Evolve was one of the first like big games of last
Oh,
generation.
that was supposed to be a
It was
big
supposed to
game.
be. It was one
Yeah,
of the,
that was
you know,
gonna
and
be
it's,
next gen.
honestly, like, looking at some games now, I'm like, gosh, if they had come out a few years later and like figured some of their stuff out, they might have had a hit, because that asymmetric style of gameplay is pretty popular these days.
Mm-hmm.
What with the Among Us's and other such streaming focused experiences, Evolve could be a real hot streaming game if it had not come out,
I
2014.
No, I think that while you're right about asymmetry, I think Evolve's problem was that its asymmetry boiled down to just running circles around a map looking for something.
Well, if the game was better, it would have been. It probably would have helped.
Yeah.
You mean if the game was good, it would have been good?
No, but I mean, there's other games just like it. Like there's the Friday the 13th game that has its audience that is basically Evolve, but one of the people is Freddy. Or wait, is it Jason? I don't know. I
I
don't
don't
watch
know. They're like
stupid
the
80s
same
movies.
to me. I feel like the hero shooter is dead. I don't think Overwatch has the same reach it
I don't
once
think it
did.
does either, but it's like all self-inflicted. Like that's their fault.
It's very
Yeah, I don't think
it's
Overwatch
very
has had
funny
an
that
update in 2 years now,
Yeah,
almost.
and Overwatch 2 was just pushed to 2022.
2022. It's very funny that's still coming out. I can't believe like
I
why.
have to wonder if
It
it'll be
seems
different than it was announced as, and we'll know soon.
uh,
BlizzCon is
part of
happening.
me
I bet they'll.
part of me thinks
I
it's gonna get
No,
canceled.
I think it'll be
No
like
way.
it won't be canceled, but you know how we talked about Halo Infinite. The idea that maybe
Mhm.
they should just be like, you know what, it's not coming to Xbox One. I kind of think that Overwatch 2 will be like, you know what, actually
It's
it
not coming to
doesn't.
PC.
No. You know what, actually it doesn't work with Overwatch 1. Actually, it's a separate client, so actually you're gonna have to buy this game, because their original plan sounded like, okay, I guess nobody's gonna buy this game, right? We all agree nobody's gonna buy this. Yeah.
That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah.
Like why would you?
So the hero shooter is only dead because Blizzard chose to kill it itself. Somebody who's competent could come in and swoop in and make something of it, I think.
I think everyone's tired of it.
Yeah,
so
I'll be the
it'll a
wet
while.
blanket and say I never liked those games because they're so
I liked
dependent
Overwatch.
on
Your
like a
team.
meta, right?
Yeah.
And how my character is just better than yours.
Well-
If you look at some of the all-time great multiplayer games, you have a level playing field and it's about the player's skill.
You're right.
In Halo, you can figure out when a guy has grenades. You can look at the gun he's got. You can look at the part of the map he's in, and you have a reasonable expectation of the kind of engagement you're getting into, and you can adjust accordingly. But in Overwatch, it's like, does this guy, have his super ability where he can just, press a button and blow my head off, right?
Well, that's why Overwatch worked early on, when it was more focused on like just having a good time. When you could just have a team of 5 McCrees and go up against a team of 5 divas and be total, and like there was no in-game system that deterred you from doing so. And as they went more and more competitive, that's when that game started to crumble. Like, I used to really like that as someone who used to love just loading up TF2 and playing a few rounds just for fun, even though, I was terrible and there were certain classes that I just was always outmatched by. Still had fun, and Overwatch was the same thing, even though I knew it was kind of broken in some ways. It was just like, this is a good time. And then they started to make it more focused on being competitive, and then you found out that as a competitive game, Overwatch is, 1, extremely boring, and 2, just really plain bad as a competitive shooter. So, and I doubt Overwatch 2 is going to go backwards, because I think once you go competitive, it's hard to go back.
That's kind of, Yeah, I mean, I think that when you start going competitive, you pare down your audience to
Right.
only
Like
the
they
people
lost
who
me.
want to compete.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have no interest at
yeah.
all. Like, and I used to
Nope.
love that game. Like, I've bought that game, I think, almost 3 times. So I really like it. But obviously, at this point, if they lost me, then I can't imagine how many others they've just given away.
Yeah, I really only liked playing as
Yeah.
Mercy.
And then they made it so that only one person could be Mercy. So if somebody took it, sorry.
I only play that kind of crap for
And
fun,
like I
and it's
said
not
in
fun.
2016 or whenever, when they made that change, I said, "Wow, you're just gonna make this like that's what competitive is for. You're just gonna kill the quick play audience." And lo and
Hmm.
behold, look where we
It
are.
did.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah, I did, and I was
Cheston was right
put it on the calendar, boys. I was
for
right
once.
That and the time that I said VR or what? No, maybe it was VR. I said VR wouldn't take off the way that people in 2015 thought it would at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
I said
Well,
it would be
I
a
think
It might
slow
eventually,
burn.
but
that one was easy to see coming because who has a room to devote to VR?
Right.
it was just overzealous.
Well, right. I know,
journalism.
but that was the same. It was like Steam boxes and that. I was like, I don't know about these things.
Well, I think we were both on board with the Kinect is going to be a bomb.
Yeah.
I think anyone with a brain could see that,
I
but
don't think we thought it would be a bomb.
I thought it would. I thought it
Well,
was
it didn't
like
come out as a bomb.
extremely
I mean,
limited.
it came out very successful. The problem was that the tail on it was not there.
The technology was not
Well,
there.
well, it wasn't there for games. I mean, they did find cool things outside of games, but for games, it was limited to like, wave in front of your TV.
We talk about this a lot with stuff like the adaptive triggers on the PS5, and the Kinect was the same deal. It's like so many games are multi-plat now that you kind of have to create a least common denominator experience. What are you going to do with the Kinect? Like, I remember Mass Effect, and they had, like, you can yell at
Voice
Liara
act,
to
yeah.
use this or that ability.
Mhm.
You can also do your command wheel with your voice commands.
Mhm. And, you know, that's just not
Well,
a
it was
selling
funny.
point. That's not going to make money.
All right. Well, I don't think we have anything else to say about Battleborn. Just
Well, we didn't have much
big
to
ol'
say because
F.
then we started talking about Overwatch.
hey, that's
I mean,
kind
I
of
think that's
Battleborn in a
poetic,
nutshell.
you know?
It is.
Yeah.
Even in death, it gets mogged by Overwatch.
Well, that'll do it for us this week. You can reach us on Twitter at alltodaypod or on Gmail, alltodaypodcast@gmail.com. This is Derek.
I'm Setzer.
And Cheston.
We will see you next time. Goodbye.